Happy Monday, everyone. This is Carl S. Moore, and today I'm going to be talking to you about focus groups. But first, a brief history is due. Focus groups are actually a concept created by social scientists in the 1940s to evaluate audio response to radio programs. As you can see later on, it's a progress to where we're using them now, um, and social science research and businesses are still using them for a lot of their marketing purposes. Focus groups are group interviews. They're solely a qualitative research tool that's pretty much a group interview, and the small group discussions address the specific topics. They're usually about 6 to 12 participants, either matched or varied specific characteristics of interest to that researcher. Now, when you're designing a focus group, you pretty much want to carefully plan it based on whatever you want your research to yield. Write your script in practice beforehand because, as we will see in a moment, takes skill to pull off a successful focus group. Identify and recruit participants, conduct the focus group sessions, develop the coding scheme, segment and code the data, analyze the data, and then interpret and publish. This is pretty much an outline from start to finish. If you have questions, we could definitely discuss this at the end of the presentation. Keys to focus groups. The basic keys to a focus group, you need your moderator, your note taker, your participants, and your transcriptionist. You want to have a room with few distractions. Sorry. You want 8 or less participants. It says 6 to 12. 8 is the ideal number that most of the literature that I read discussed, and name tags are helpful for people in focus groups, even if they do know each other. Pre-test your questions is important. You want to ask general questions first. If you were doing a focus group on bullying, you might ask a question such as, what do you all think about bullying in your school? And then, more specifically, you could say, what have your teachers done when someone has been bullied? What have you seen in the past? Specific examples that might yield. Questions may vary in their level of structure, as I just kind of modeled for you all. Most important points need to be addressed early, where you want to have those questions that your research is really saturated or, I guess, continued upon. You want to have those kind of built in early on in your question asking, and you want to keep your discussion less than 2 hours. Was actually reading one piece that said an hour and a half is a good time to plan so that you have a half-hour wiggle room if you were to go over. You want to use a flip chart and make the recording process as visible as possible. You could also use a dry erase board, or some people can have transcribed notes and written on the typed it up as it's projected. You can consider having tape recording or another researcher taking detailed notes along the process. So these are some key aspects of focus groups. Moderator roles. I think it was really important to discuss moderator roles when discussing focus groups because moderator can have multiple roles, but any skilled moderator should be able to play all these roles in any given focus group. A moderator is pretty much, in case some of you might not know, the person who's going to guide the discussion, and they are going to ask the questions to those participants of the focus group. So that person can be a seeker of wisdom and say, or pose questions such as, can you tell me more about that? Or how do you feel about bullying? What is this bullying thing? They're an enlightened novice. Okay, so I know bullying is this, but tell me more about it. They're an expert consultant. Bullying is blah, 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 blah. And I just wanted to inform you all of this. Now let's talk about this. A challenger, they might say, wait, you say that's bullying? Well, are you sure that that's bullying? What do the rest of you guys think in the room? There might be a referee. Okay, Tom and John, I know you both have different opinions on bullying, but let's discuss. Let's hear John, and then we can Tom, and we'll let you go, and then we can discuss it more later. They're a writer, of course. They're taking notes, and then you pretty much have a discussion leader and a technical expert and a moderator. And from what I was reading, it's no easy task. It's really important to have a really good moderator in your focus groups. Types of excuse me. Types of discussion methods. You have nominal, Delphi. You have role playing, storytelling. Nominal group method is pretty much where you're drawing off of the opinions of all those folks in the room. You generate and evaluate the ideas after deciding on a criteria. And if you are taking notes or have a flip chart, this is a little easier to do if you have it very visible what's being discussed. The Delphi or the Delphi method actually has experts discussing an issue. For example, I know you all were watching the Eagles game probably yesterday, and if the referees want to discuss new rules on hitting in the NFL, they would get referees together instead of just a bunch of players or people like ourselves, and they would discuss what these new rules could be. So that's we can use the Delphi or the Delphi method for those circumstances. Focus groups in practice. James Kahan's article, Focus Groups as a Tool for Policy Analysis, just one article that I was reading to understand a little bit more about how they're used. And these groups or studies listed here actually inform policy in the UK, where you have the Netherlands, gays in the military, training, quality assurance, and blood banking, where they were doing HIV. There was an issue with the HIV within the blood banks there, and then the one I want to focus on is the safety of the Schiphol Airport. Airport safety was what this focus group was. The topic or the main point of this focus group. They wanted to come up with a better solution for how to make the airport safer because there was an airplane that crashed into a community and the airport was shut down. And then some years later, they wanted to build the airport back and expand it, and they needed the community's opinion for, or actually their approval, to actually have the zoning um, code ordinance or what have you for the airport to be built again. So they had 8 focus groups, 5 in communities near flight paths, 2 near small airports, 1 away from any airport, and has actually proved to be a successful measure in understanding or taking the pulse for the community from the community about airport safety. So benefits, relatively easy to assemble, as you guys can see. Good for groups with lower literacy levels, such as young children and ESL. Open recording can allow you to participants to confirm their contributions, and that's going back to the visible display. Provide some rich data. Um, Participants are not required to answer every question. This can actually help build new connections between people and the information, or just between the researcher and the information, as it's a collective consciousness and groupthink and a think tank often. High face validity, meaning it measures what it says it's going to measure. And then, best of all, they're low in cost. Sometimes you can attract people to focus groups by offering food rather than some extensive measures of incentives that you have to do with interviews and interviewing multiple people. In addition, they're lower in cost in terms of the transcription, where it's not multiple interviews that have to be transcribed, where it's just 1 2 hour or hour and a half focus group that you have to transcribe or pay someone to transcribe for you. Limitations. You have less control than interviews. Data can be difficult to analyze. The moderator must be skilled, as we discussed before. It's very critical to have a skilled moderator, and the rest you can see here. When to use focus group method? When insights are needed into a new area of research, purposes to investigate where opinions and attitudes are conditional. Researcher needs additional information to prepare for a larger scale study. When not to use focus groups? When discussion could become emotionally charged, when the researcher loses control over a project, and you have like you relinquishing your control to a biased third party. Um, when statistical projections are needed, because you cannot get those from a focus group. Other methods would produce better quality information if you know that this is you need numbers and raw data, and the generalizability of some of the findings are going to be limited with focus groups as well. And then when confidentiality is compromised. Here are my references. Now, do you all have any questions?